It was the finale to a decade of turbulence and upheaval. But this time, it was an event through which a nation could put aside its differences and stand together to marvel at the achievement.
The Johnny Rocket Launchpad. And now, here's Johnny.
Hey, it's Johnny Rocket here at the Johnny Rocket Launchpad, always launching ideas in your direction in Northwest only rock and roll libertarian radio show. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Kurt Nelson! Whoa! My voice of reason, the beautiful, sexy. Oh, Lord. She is fucking hot.
Yeah, but you can say that about your girlfriend, but I can't.
You can say it.
She's hot.
I got you.
She's totally fucking hot.
That's my favorite.
Heather Nixon, my voice of reason. Always a pleasure to have you
Well,
on
thank
the
you.
show.
Thank you both.
We are here with our very special guest, Timothy J. Turner, who ran for Washington State House of Representatives 48th District Position 2, author of The Profit Bargaining Ratio, the production, distribution, and consumption of human value. 2013, you can find it at Amazon.com. Welcome, Tim Turner!
Woo! Who is also very hot.
He's a hot motherfucker. Hot.
I think
Hot
my
motherfucker.
fiance agrees with that.
Yay!
Okay, so we were outside smoking and joking. Well, talk to us about the Seattle Times interview you had.
Yeah, so the entire endorsement process, the way politics, this is I found out the ugly truth about politics when I ran for office. So I went into the Seattle Times editorial board to have it. And of course, most media services tend to lean towards the Democratic side of things, except for Fox News, which is, Republican and leans the other way. So I understand that, and I understand I'm a libertarian, and nobody's ever heard of me before. I have no political record. So I've never been elected to office before, so I understand.
It's a good thing, though, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but
and people need to people who haven't run for office and aren't familiar with politics need to educate themselves on how it works, because it is ugly. So I go into the Seattle Times and I figure, okay, I'll go in here, I'll talk, I'll say some things. They almost certainly won't endorse me, but it's for the community and for public information. So I go into the interview, and it's the way this works is you have 3 editorial board members and you have the 2 candidates that are opposing each other, and they invite all the candidates in from across the state in their pairs. So we're sitting in this editorial board meeting, and they're asking us all these questions, all the hot button issues in the election about this and about that. At one point, I don't recall exactly what she said, but my opponent, Joan McBride, was saying, well, if the legislature doesn't vote the way I want to, like what frequently happens is the legislature will just not vote on something, right? If the legislature doesn't vote the way I want to, then the governor should take control and just force it through. And the Seattle Times editorial board was kind of sitting there, and they were kind of saying, and I said, wait a minute. So you mean you believe that if the legislature doesn't approve of the policies that you personally approve of, that the governor should take dictatorial control and just force it through? And at that point, it was kind of hilarious, because the whole editorial board, they kind of just sit up and they're like, wait a minute, she did just say that. And they all hopped on her and they started asking her questions on that. And so it was just kind of.
It was like sharks in water, right?
Yeah, it was kind of funny.
They saw some blood, they smelled some blood, and they're like, oh fuck yeah, here we go.
Here we go. Oh yeah, so that was kind of interesting. And then towards the end of the interview, there was one thing, the Seattle Times editorial board, they said, well, we're asking all the candidates to release their endorsement surveys. You get these pieces of paper from all these activist organizations, which are basically political blackmail, and you sign off and you say all these twisted, crazy things on there. The way that works, as soon as you file for office, every political interest organization in the state, they send in this petition, and it's basically like, do you support, Bill 472, or do you think children should die? And what
about the children?
There's no way to give like a neutral answer on almost all of these. And it's rigged. It's rigged. So either you sign off, and think about it. Anytime you see a candidate who is endorsed by an organization, they almost certainly got one of these. Almost no major professional political advocacy group doesn't do this. So if you see that they got an endorsement, they signed off on one of these forms. So you either commit to passing specific legislation that organization supports, or the organization has this blackmail sheet that basically says, I want babies to die, I want workers to die, I want businesses to go broke, right? So it's basically political blackmail, and that's every time you see an endorsement on a candidate, there's one of these sheets there. that some organization has. So the Seattle Times is saying, well, we want every candidate to reveal their endorsement surveys and make those public, right? And this happened. I talked with some other candidates, and what happened to me happened to some other candidates. So they're in the meeting. They ask both myself and my opponent to both say, to release our endorsement surveys, and she says no. I won't. Well, I didn't spell check them all, and there's so many of them. And they started jumping on her for that, and I don't think she ever did release them because this is a Democrat running, with the Seattle Times Democrat-leaning editorial board in a Democrat-leaning district,
right?
And she doesn't want her own voters to know these endorsement surveys that she signed off on and what she said to get these endorsements. And I'm sitting there laughing because it's so ridiculous, the whole situation of, I'm not going to tell the voters what I actually stand for or what I'm saying behind closed doors. It's a perfect example of closed door politics,
right?
And so editorial board turns to me and they ask, well, are you going to release that? And I say, yeah, I will. Which I haven't released a whole bunch of them because they're basically political blackmail. So I haven't signed a bunch of them. But I say, yeah, I'll release them. And I do. And the editorial Times board fundamentally endorsed her.
Wow. And you had like none. How many did you have?
I had like 3.
3? And she had like 500?
She had like 100 endorsements. A lot of them were individuals, but she was basically running on endorsements. She had no policy issues. Like if you went to her website, there were no issues. There was nothing but endorsements. Right. I don't think there was anything even vague there. It was all just endorsements.
They had to go Democrat. That's the policy of Seattle Times.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Heaven forbid they'll have a libertarian in there and to take away their power.
Yeah, but that's
what they're worried about.
So when they did endorse her, and they make do they say why they endorsed her, why they believe she was the better candidate?
Which is interesting because the endorsement said of me that I'm too tied to principles to understand the impact of those principles, which of course is a partisan viewpoint. I of course believe that's not true, and that kind of depends on your partisan leanings. What they said about her was that she needs to educate herself better on the issues lest she become a reliable vote for the Democrat political caucus, which basically means, in very polite speech, that she is a puppet for the Democrat political party. That's the official Seattle Times, which it's just crazy.
That's crazy, man.
The partisanship is so thick, and no news media source is completely. You're not born for the Democrats right here. Right. The news media is a corporate company which sells a product. They are not a public service. They are not there to give you information. They are there to give you their product.
Exactly. And it's biased.
It is biased. And it's if you know that it's biased, everyone's going to be biased. You can't have something that's unbiased.
Exactly.
But admit your bias.
This show is fucking biased.
Admit your bias and read it. And I try to read, I try to inform myself from a variety of news services. Some are more painful than others. Mm-hmm. But I could try to get a couple of of unbiased ones. One of the ones I really like, Neocon. She's a blog writer. She's an ex-Democrat who became a Republican. So it's really good because she's much more neutral, and she tends to be very skittish about.
She's cynical.
She's cynical, yes, and it's that cynicism which I like because for years she bought the crap. For years she bought the party line. For years she did what she took, and when she left, she felt betrayed. And because she's afraid of being betrayed again, she's much more critical than other Republicans are of the Republican crap. So she's a great person for being unbiased.
Anyway, so what we do here in the third segment, it's called Rocket Fire. And what we do here in Rocket Fire is we're going to ask you a series of 10 questions. These questions are politically fueled, as always, hence the name Rocket Fire. If you can answer these questions within 30 to 60 seconds, that would be badass. You ready to play Rocket Fire?
I'm ready.
Should we move away from paper books and move towards electronic publishing?
I don't particularly have I have a personal preference.
Okay.
I like paper books because you can write in the margins. You can take it to the bath and you can read it in the bath. You can take it wherever you are. Electronic books are cheaper. I think there's a lot more capability for taking notes, for cross-linking the media. And ultimately, that's a decision that should be made by the people who are reading the books.
All right, on question 2. How has tourism become an upcoming industry?
Well, I think it's as people become more affluent, they go more places. That attracts. I mean, that's a business sector. It's not something that you want to base your entire economy off of because that's very fickle. But the more money people have, the more they're going to go visit places.
Question 3.
Why do prices go up?
That is a hugely complex subject.
Just give us.
Effectively, prices go up because people are not producing enough of something.
Okay.
That signals more people that they need to make more of it, and it signals the people who are consuming it that they should consume less.
Question 4.
What would the impact of the economy have if the price ceiling and the price floor were removed?
It would be awesome.
Hell yeah.
What politicians, people like price controls. Politicians put price controls in place because people want to keep their high prices or their high wages, or they want to keep their competition's prices down. When you take these out, the economy starts to meet its natural form, which is it's this balancing point between nature and resources and between what people actually want. So when that balance is met, the economy is much more efficient and it's much more productive at producing what people want with the limited resources that we have, instead of wasting resources to produce things that people don't want.
Right on.
Question 5.
What is social cost benefit analysis?
Social cost benefit analysis. Anytime you make a decision, there's a cost. It costs you something and you get something out of it. And cost benefit analysis is looking at the cost and is looking at the benefit and deciding, what actually gets you something out of it. Okay, I can steal that stick of gum, but I'm going to go to prison for 10 years. This is a negative cost benefit analysis. And you want to do those things which produce more for you, and you want to do those things which produce the most for you. I can spend money on buying a Corvette, or I can spend it on a college education. I should spend it on a college education because I'm going to get more out of it
later on.
Unless I'm dying of cancer.
It would be more beneficial for you to buy the Corvette.
Because I would enjoy it.
Versus long-term versus short-term.
Yes.
6.
Public sector to private sector, a good thing.
I'm a little skeptical of it. There was a big craze towards privatization and, public-private partnerships for a while. One of the problems that you have to watch out, it's a good thing. Less government is a good thing. There are some things the government needs to take care of. And one of the dangers you get into is when you have these forced public-private partnerships is the private businesses take the government for all it's worth, and you get the worst parts of public bureaucracy and accountability with the worst parts of private greed.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to watch that. I'm a big fan of it in theory. In practice, it's something you need to be very, very careful with.
Question 7.
Why do you think the European Union made a monetary unification?
I think that's a long-term plan to unify Europe. People tend to follow the dollars. You do what your job does, what apartment, what car, what food you can afford. So it's a way to bend the culture to unite Europe and put Europe on a united culture. It's also much, much more efficient because businesses that are doing business across borders, they don't have to convert and translate so much. If everyone speaks the same language, if they all use the same measurements, if they all use the same money, it makes it much, much easier to do business than if you have to translate those things. So it, in theory, should make Europe a lot more profitable. I'm not entirely sure that it's working for them, though.
Do you think it's a good idea, though?
It depends on whether it works for the people who live in Europe. I've long been skeptical of the European Union. I think it's kind of an attempt to remake the United States. There are fundamental differences between Europe and the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Europe is a lot less cohesive than I think the United States was very uncohesive, but I think Europe is even more. And so you're trying to tie those diverse people together. I've been skeptical of it.
Question 8.
What is meant by the term national debt?
National debt is the debt that's owed by the government. So when the government spends more than it can afford, it acquires debt. It's debt that's owed by the government.
Question 9.
What is meant by the term trickle-down economics?
Trickle-down economics is the recognition that there's a sort of a balance in the economy, that it's a symbiotic system. It's like the ecosystem. The idea is big businesses, they pay their employees. If the big businesses do well, they'll pay their employees more, and therefore the employees will do well and the common working man will do better. So the idea is that if you allow businesses to succeed, the common man will succeed too.
Question 10.
What is opportunity cost?
Opportunity costs are those things that you give up. So like we were talking about college education and the Corvette. You've only got so much money. If you buy the Corvette, you cannot go to college. The college is the opportunity cost. It's the opportunity that you gave up. If you buy college, then the Corvette is the opportunity cost. It's the thing that you gave up.
Rocket fire! Woo! Yeah! Timothy J. Turner! Badass, dude. Killer. So let's talk some geek shit here, man. We'll talk more economics. This is your bread and butter, man. And this is why we want to pick your brain on this show. Okay, so do you support a mixed economic system?
I don't. So every economy has a theory behind it, right? And I like to keep things, something should work because when someone builds an airplane, the entire airplane should work off of cohesive logic and a cohesive laws of physics.
Okay.
The wings should not be designed off of they shouldn't be built off of alchemy when the engine is built off of chemistry.
Sure.
Right? They should all work together. So mixed economics is kind of a result of the politicians fighting each other and changing the balance over time. I'm obviously in favor of pure capitalism, which is not the capitalism most people know of. What most people think of as capitalism is actually Keynesianism or closer to mercantilism. What I'm talking about,
which is kind of a mixed economy.
It's kind of a mixed economy. Yeah,
Right.
that's what we have. We have an economy which is probably about 80, I would guess, about 80% mercantilism and about 20% socialism.
Okay.
We haven't had anything really like a capitalist economy. It's for about 100 years.
I would agree.
The only reason we have something that's a capitalist economy is because mercantilism is superficially similar to capitalism.
What are the advantages, though, of a free market system, which we support here on the show?
Free market system allows people it allows people freedom to get the things that they want. A system which is not a free market system, it forces people to buy what the politicians decide, which people don't want to buy what the politicians decide. They've tried that. That was like the worst parts of Russia. That's the part of Russia that people make jokes about is the crappy cars, the crappy living conditions. Ronald Reagan used to make jokes all the time. There's the joke where the guy's calling up the government and says, "Oh, I want to buy a car." And the government says, "Okay, well, it takes 10 years to buy a car." And it says, "Oh, yeah, here's the car. It's ready to pick up. It's on August 2nd. You can pick up the car in 10 years from now." And the guy says, "Well, is it in the morning or is it in the evening?" And the government guy says, "Well, what's the difference?" And he says, "Well, the plumber's coming in the morning."
Right.
A free market allows you to buy, like iPhones. That's a free market. The government didn't say, well, everyone should have a phone.
Right.
Steve Jobs said, well, we've got this interesting technology. What can we do for it? The internet, the government built the internet to resist a nuclear attack. It's so some guy in Zanzibar can call up Washington, D.C. and say, we need the nukes here now. Right. Cat pictures, everything that's on the internet. Everything that's on the internet was private citizens and the free market. The internet is a great example of the internet is the freest market on the planet. That is the free market. It produces all kinds of things that people don't want to see, but you're guaranteed whatever you want to see, you can go find it. And that's really the problem with the free market is people end up and they see, why are there cat pictures on the internet? Why is there pornography on the internet? Why is there X or Y or Z?
Because there's a market there.
Right? And so when people try to ban these things, and that's the end of the free market because people are trying to control each other.
Well, now the government's trying to step in with net neutrality, right? Which has been passed, but they're trying to stick their nose where it doesn't belong. It's the free market. It actually is a free market. The internet is.
I'm very concerned about. I haven't looked into all of net neutrality.
I think it's a foothold. Getting the government foot in the door, so therefore they can later start regulating more and more.
When has a government agency not expanded itself? I mean, has a government panel ever come together and said, "Oh, we think that our purpose here is pointless, and you should give us less money.
We should fire everyone. We don't want any more money. You guys have a good day."
Yeah.
Never going to happen.
It is. The government should make sure that anyone who wants to get on the internet should be able to get on the internet, unless they're handing out people's private information or nuclear secrets or whatever security stuff. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm a little bit nervous about who's supporting net neutrality and what they intend to do with it and what's wrong with the internet now. I see a lot of people making arguments. Oh, well, this will keep evil companies from keeping people off the internet. Well, are they doing it now? Why are you asking for police when there isn't any crime happening? That's a little bit dubious.
Exactly. All right. So are monopolies a good thing?
Most monopolies, natural monopolies, go away on their own. They dissolve over time naturally. If someone comes up with a new product, Coca-Cola, it's the greatest thing ever. And then because they're making a huge profit, well, suddenly there's Pepsi-Cola, and suddenly there's a dozen knockoff colas. There's Safeway
RC.
Select Cola. There's
RC.
Cola.
What happened to RC Cola?
You can still find it. It's there.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Most monopolies which persist over time persist because the government made them, which is actually one of the mistakes that Adam Smith made after his huge thing going against monopoly and government grants. He actually justified, I think, the British East India Company saying, well, this wouldn't exist if the government didn't put it there. Good, it shouldn't exist.
Exactly.
It's one of the few deviations from his philosophy, which I think he put there because he didn't fully work out his philosophy when he wrote it down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a fundamental. It's because he didn't work out all the kinks, I think, first.
Sure. Is outsourcing a good thing?
It's a good response to the problem. We shouldn't have the problem. A lot of the things that we've done in our economy are forcing companies to outsource jobs overseas, which ultimately is good because it balances the world economy. It helps people in underdeveloped countries develop. It helps them get higher paying jobs and raise their quality of living, which is good. It's a little bit painful for us in America. Part of the problem, unions are making things more expensive. I mean, you got to pay an American worker $20 an hour to do a job. A job in Zanzibar at 10 cents an hour sounds really good. And if that American worker unionizes and he's getting paid $100 an hour, that's really nice.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And then prices will naturally go up. And so therefore no one's going to buy that American product. They're going to go over to another country and buy the imports.
Which is why a lot of American companies have been troubled. A lot of car companies have been in trouble. It's one of the reasons why Detroit is a disaster area, is because all the businesses there ship their jobs overseas. My family, my grandfather was a logger. All the logging companies have gone overseas because of the environmental protection and because of the unionization forces jobs overseas.
The unions create an artificial value that is not the free market value for their demands for the employee.
It's a price conspiracy. People support it because it's supporting the little guy. The problem is that it also hurts the little guy. One of the things I talk about in my book is that unions don't really stick it to the big corporations as much as they think it does. Because if their costs go up, they just raise their prices. And so what you're really sticking it to is the people who are buying your product. We basically have the working man fighting against the working man. It's not because of some evil, greedy conspiracy. It's just because that's the way the market works.
So what is an oligopoly?
An oligopoly is when you have a conspiracy to run the system. Like a monarchy or a dictatorship is like one guy running everything. An oligarchy is where you have a small group or a small conspiracy running everything. So when companies get together and they do price fixing and they say, hey, we're only going to sell this.
So
product
hey, General Mills, this is Kellogg's, and we're going to make our cereal $4. You have to make yours $4, and then we'll all work out.
That's effectively an oligarchy.
Oligopoly.
Yeah. Which I don't support. The problem is it's really hard to control that.
Right. That makes sense. Well, like Visa and MasterCard, wouldn't they be an oligopoly?
Yeah, basically. And the thing is that monopolies, if the government doesn't get involved, monopolies tend to dissolve over time. You're making a huge profit. And if I could go down to the corner and start a bank, if anyone could just walk down to the corner and start a bank and offer people home loans and student loans and stuff like that, we would make a huge chunk of the profit from those big corporations, and they would have to make nicer rules. They'd have to be nicer to people. The problem is, have you ever tried going down to the bank or down to the corner and starting a bank? I mean, lately there's been a couple of stories in the news about
you need a business license, you need this kind of license, you pay for this, you have to pay for that, you have to pay for this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You get shut down by like 5 federal agencies within 30 minutes. There's been a lot of stories in the news lately about little girls with lemonade stands getting shut down by police or whatever. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
Like, you need a business license to sell lemonade from your front yard. And who does that benefit? Well, it benefits the big corporations that have a business license that are selling lemonade by the ton in the commercial stores. And so you get that surplus of big, huge corporations, and you get a shortage of smaller businesses. And I don't think we shouldn't encourage smaller businesses, but right now our policies discourage them. And the government should be neutral. It should protect rights. It shouldn't try to tell you who you are. It shouldn't try to re-engineer the market. Whenever it does that, it re-engineers it to be whatever the politician imagines is the perfect market. And that's not the government's job.
Timothy J. Turner! Thank you very much, Timothy. That was fucking badass, dude. It's always a pleasure to have you on this show, man. Give it up for Timothy Turner. He ran for Washington State House of Representatives, 48th District, Position 2. And he's the author of The Profit Bargaining Ratio, the Production, Distribution, and Consumption of Human Value. 2013, you can find that at Amazon.com. This is Johnny Rocket here at the Johnny Rocket Launchpad. And next up, we have more of Tony Reyna. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Kurt Nelson.
Yes, sir. And hey, everybody, don't forget to check us out on nwczradio.com. Fridays, 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Saturdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
And my voice, the reason, the beautiful Heather Nixon.
And we urge you to check out LifeSpring Ministries. 100% of the money you donate goes to the children in Africa. Get your wallet out and donate whatever you can. Your money will not be wasted through bureaucracies. Every dime of your money will help a needy child. Visit LifespringAfrica.com.
Anyway, so this is Johnny Rocket here at the Launchpad, always launching ideas in your direction. We have some commercial breaks. We got some tunes. We'll be right back. Stick around.